Go ahead.
Okay. We sure do miss you guys. We're here at the church this time because Alex left and took his iPhone, and we both have Android. The struggle is real with that. So we had to use Scott's phone. So he's helping us out today. So we're not at home, but we wanted to do it at home, but we couldn't. So maybe another time. But so we are in the process of moving stuff. So, I don't think there's anything on this wall in the boot room anyway, but everything is changing. It's going to be great. Scott's getting everything all fixed up for us when we can all be back together again, which we hope is very, very, very soon.
So with that,
I'm going to say goodbye. He's going to teach you a lesson.
okay. So we covered a lot last week. I figured this week we just cover a few more of the chapters and kind of focus this week on starting with, was there really a Noah's Ark and a flood? So was there an ark? Yes. We covered this quite a few months ago. So there was an ark. It was, about 500 feet by 85 feet by 50 feet tall, which, reading the book again, reading this chapter again, is roughly the same dimensions as a modern freight ship. It's about as big as people believe, or the experts believe, not people believe, that you could build a wooden ship of any kind. So that is kind of interesting. Man did not build a ship of this size again until the 1800s. So if the flood was about 4,500 years before Christ, so you're talking almost 6,000 years before we built a ship of this size again. That's pretty impressive. So let's see. So there's a lot of talk about, well, what was the technology and how did we do that? Well, we have proof that we built pyramids, and even with today's technology, it would be a struggle to build pyramids. So we don't know what technology they used and how it worked. We can speculate, and they did use a lot of human power, or what we call manpower, human power, slaves, to build things. And using tens of thousands of people wasn't as big deal back then. Not saying that Noah used tens of thousands of people, but they did to build the pyramids. So there may be a technology that God provided Noah that we don't understand or didn't know. And there's nothing saying that Noah didn't have help building the ark. He obviously had his sons, but there's nothing saying that he didn't have people help him build the ark, and he did it all himself. On the ark, there's discussions about how did Noah in 120 years not only build the ark, but round up all of the animals from all around the world. And if you look in Genesis chapter 6, verse 20, Noah didn't gather the animals. God sent the animals to him. So that would make it a lot easier. Mom and I have been struggling this last week and a half with animals getting into our house. We've had 4 or 5 birds get into our house, and trying to capture them is a challenge. So they get excited when humans try to approach them. So yeah, I can imagine trying to go around and get 2 of every animal and get them onto an ark. So if they came to if they came to Noah, it would have been a lot easier. If they came to Moses, it would have been a really different story. So how did they fit all of the animals into the ark? We talked about this before. And well, first of all, you don't take the old animals, the full-size grown animals. You take adolescent animals. They're smaller. You can fit a lot more in. And besides that, if you're taking something and you're going to destroy the rest of it, you'd want the young, healthy animals on board. So they're also a little smaller. So as many of us, puppies and stuff like that. So they also didn't have to take like every breed of dog that we have now we talked about this last week with genetics. A dog is a dog, and it gets specialized over the period of time. So it's been 6,000 years. It's many generations of dogs. So how could, one of the other questions was, how could everything have passed away? I mean, if there's a flood, I mean, people have survived on rafts and stuff like that. Well, there was a flood for 150 days. I don't know about you, but 150 days of food and water to put inside of some sort of craft that I built after it started raining, which it had never done before, would have been very hard to do. So the other question was, where did all of the water come from? I mean, you have to remember, before the flood, it had never rained, so they didn't know what that was like. So where would all the water have come from? Well, it says the earth exploded and water came up out of the ground. So water would have come out of the ground. This is talked about in another chapter that we're going to look at today, is that the earth was likely one continent at that time. So things changed drastically during the flood. So the land masses changed and everything. And I mean, it's kind of, everybody, I mean, at least I myself thought about when the flood happened, Noah was in the Middle East. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, everything changed during the flood. So the fact that he landed there, and that's where he's believed to have landed, has nothing to do with where he started from, and we don't know where he started from. The Garden of Eden was destroyed, so where that was relative to the Middle East and where we think of today is totally changed. So, and then one of the last questions in this chapter was, where's the ark today? And I don't remember this from last time we went over this chapter, but it's very likely that Noah would have used the material in the ark. So it's not around to find. I mean, you think about it, he spent a lot of time and effort making this wood into certain shapes and just taking this wood from trees. So first, there wouldn't have been a lot of trees around because of the flood. And two, he's got all of this wood that he's made into usable sizes and stuff. He probably would have built homes for his family and his son's families out of the ark. Why not? I mean, it's there, it's available, and use it. So there wouldn't be an ark around for us to find some 6,000 years later. And even if he didn't use the wood, it's wood 6,000 years later. If anybody leaves a 2x4 outside, they'll know that it won't be around for very long. So with that, the next chapter was talking about the spread of animals around the world. So after the flood, there was an ice age, so the water levels would have been lower, things would have been able to travel, and there would have been shorter distances to islands, and things. There would have been wood floating on the water and stuff, so animals would have been able to get to other islands and travel between those things. And I mean, even evolutionists believe that man traveled to like North America across the land bridge, so between Asia and North America. So that's how things traveled around. It wouldn't have taken thousands and millions of years for that to happen. It could happen fairly quickly. That's how seeds got dispersed for plants and everything as well, all around the world. And we saw from the Japanese earthquake a few years ago, there was stuff that washed up on the shore in Oregon and Washington and British Columbia. There was several docks and ships that washed ashore with animals that they were very concerned about contaminating the plants along the coast ecosystem. Mama acts behind the camera, mouthing to me. That was a natural occurrence. The earthquake was a natural occurrence. Some of the docks weren't, but I mean, it's natural that things would break free and travel. So that's pretty common. So big question in chapter 12 was dinosaurs. Are they real? What really happened to the dinosaurs? Because they were killed millions of years ago by a giant meteor, right? Oh, no. So, first of all, were dinosaurs real? And yes, they were, and they're actually even talked about in Job, and I didn't write down which verse in Job, but they were talked about in Job. So if anybody wants the verse, text us. That way it'll make you guys do something and actually interact with by text. So would the dinosaurs have fit on Noah's Ark? And yes, they would have, because again, they would have used juvenile dinosaurs. They would have been smaller, would have fit. So and then after the flood, it would have been a different world, right? Things would have been different. Things changed. First of all, there was different continents, and things would have been different. So they might not have grown as large, and just like dogs, we have many species of dogs. There's still creatures around that look like dinosaurs and could have been part of that, what people thought as dinosaurs. And one of the things that I thought was interesting in this chapter is, why aren't dinosaurs specifically mentioned in the King James Version of the Bible? So the word dinosaurs didn't come around until the 1850s, when somebody started calling them dinosaurs. When was the King James Version of the Bible written? Well before the word dinosaurs came out. So this actually came out in 1611. So the word dinosaur wasn't around. It wasn't a term that was being used when the King James Version of the Bible was translated from the Hebrew and Greek. And obviously in Hebrew and Greek, it wasn't a word either. So then in chapter 14. 13. 14 was fossils. 13 was fossils. So 13 was fossils. It talked a lot about why aren't dinosaurs fossils and human fossils found together then if they were on the earth at the same time? And this was interesting to me. So 95% of all fossils that man has found are shallow marine fossils. So like stuff found in shallow salt water. So 95% of the remaining 5% of fossils are algae and plants. So now 95% of the remaining 0.25% are invertebrates, so they don't have spines, so it's like mosquitoes, stuff like that. So that leaves 0.0125% of the fossils that we found, and 95% of that remaining amount do we have two fossil pieces found together of the same creature. So that means if you found 1 million fossils, you would find 6 that are the same creature. So it takes millions. So we go to museums and you see these huge dinosaurs. Well, most of that is not truly fossils. They find some fossils and then they make the whole dinosaur out of what they believe is the rest. So that's part of the reason you don't find them together. Second, would humans have been, before the flood, would humans have been with large dinosaurs? Would you hang out do you hang out where bears live now? Do you typically hang out where elephants live now? No. I mean, man is in the same general area, but you're not hanging out specifically. So the chances of them being washed into the same location, and becoming a fossil is a fairly rare thing. So it's pretty unlikely that we'd find them together. But on the other hand, we have no idea how much fossils we've actually found, so there's a very likely chance that there's a place in the world that just hasn't been found yet where there's fossils of humans and dinosaurs together. Also, there wasn't a lot of people probably back then. There's estimates, the estimates range greatly, but it's estimated there might have been 200 million people at most in the world then. So the population in the United States is about 350 million. And so 200 million would be less than that, and that would be in the whole world. So, chapter 14, so dinosaurs were still around. Yes, they were real. The Bible doesn't say that they weren't. And there's still pieces around. And actually just this week, somebody caught a fish that looks off of, I believe it was off of New Zealand, in some very deep water. Looks a lot like a dinosaur. So people think things are extinct and they keep finding them. There's trees been found that people thought were extinct. There's been animals found constantly in the last 30 years that people think are extinct. So, and then the last chapter we'll go over is plate tectonics. It was another one of those very technical chapters if you read it, but the basics were the Bible does not disagree with the common thought that there is plate tectonics, that the world had one land mass at some point, and then it has moved from there, which, you know, if you look at like Africa and South America, they look like they fit together, as well as some of the other pieces in the world. The Bible doesn't disagree with that, and a lot of that could have happened very rapidly during the flood instead of millions of years to travel and get that distance apart. The flood was a very violent time on the earth. A lot of things happened. There was a lot of death. But if you look at some of the dynamics and the changes in the polarity of the earth, those could have changed very quickly with all of the water and all of the changes that happened that God described during the flood, and it would explain a lot of the same things that man explains that are happen over a long period of time. So that covers a lot of the chapters of the book. Really not planning on reviewing any more in the book, and we're going to make it easy. We're going to be done with this book when we come back. So the next few weeks' lessons will be on stuff other than the question book, and then when we come back, we will start into book 2. So, and with that, hopefully everybody's doing well, and hopefully you guys are still staying in school. It's going to get hard this week. It's supposed to get really nice at the end of the week, so we will be outside probably a little bit. So, and like Michelle said at the beginning, there's a bunch of changes going on here at the church. When we come back, we will probably not be in the same room, but it'll be exciting. And the exciting part is we are working on the new church property, the Glencoe project, and that's really exciting to have our own property and our own place to be and a place we will own. So with that, stay safe, stay in your Bibles, keep praying every day, pray for each other, and we hope we'll see you pretty soon.